Hi there, I'm Vincent Boss and I provide dating and self-improvement advice. And in today's podcast, we're going to be discussing this happens when you stop chasing your ex. I provide audio coaching for breakup recovery, trying to get an ex back, attracting someone new, and life coaching. Visit www.dateme.tips for more details. Please check your spam and junk folders if you are expecting an email from me. So now let's get back into today's podcast, and today we are discussing this happens when you stop chasing your ex. So if you have been dumped and want to try to get your ex back, you will likely want to contact them and try and persuade them to change their mind. But what if you do the opposite of this? In today's podcast, I'll be explaining 3 things which are likely to happen if and when you stop chasing your ex. So let's get straight into this, and point number 1 is they will be grateful. Now, if you're a dumpee and you want to try to get your ex back, probably the last thing you're actually wanting right now is for your ex-dumper to feel grateful that you're not chasing them. But let's back up a bit and understand exactly why this is the likely feeling they will go through during this time of where you might change tact. For instance, if you were chasing your ex and now you decide to stop, and why they might be feeling grateful for that moment, and more importantly, how that can help you one day in the future get your ex back. So if we consider the breakup and what took place, at the time of the breakup, your ex-dumper unfortunately felt a very low level of romantic emotional attraction for you, the dumpee. This is why the end of a relationship. They would not have dumped you if they were feeling a high level of romantic emotional attraction. Unfortunately, for various potential reasons, this level of attraction dropped. And when it hit the necessary low point, this is when they action the breakup. So when they action the breakup, they're feeling a low level of attraction, and therefore they believe that they're going to have a more successful, fruitful, and fulfilling life forward from this, unfortunately for you, the dumpee, outside of a relationship. They believe that moving forward on a path without you right now is going to be best for them. It's likely to give them the best chance of feeling happiness, fulfillment, everything that goes with those good feelings. Unfortunately, right now they're feeling that outside of a relationship is where they're likely to find that best chance of achieving those feelings and goals. So when we consider that position, we have to understand that they are done with the relationship. They've ended the relationship, they're on their own path, and the last thing they're going to want right now is, unfortunately, to hear from you, to see you. Now, when we use the word chasing, of course, this doesn't necessarily or likely even mean physical chasing. Now, if you are physically chasing your ex, then that is a really bad sign. You need to be very, very careful with any type of behaviour which could be constituted as that. But what we're looking at is a general terminology of chasing, which would not only include any type of physical connection and interaction, but of course we're also including texting, calling, and anything which could be deemed unnecessary communication. Now, if you necessarily have to contact your ex for an undoubtedly necessary reason, then that is absolutely fine. If you need to ask them for something that they have of yours, if you want to give them something back that they have left at your house, if you have children together, if you work together and there's something important you need to say or ask, or maybe this is due to the breakup as a whole, maybe even there's a divorce going on. You know what I'm saying? If there's something necessary for you to ask, that is fine. But if there isn't, then in most instances as a dumpee, you shouldn't be contacting your ex. And whether you text them, call them, knock on their door, wait outside where they work, whatever you may be doing, if it's unnecessary, then I would suggest this is a bad move and we could constitute this under the umbrella term of chasing. So your ex-dumper is not going to want you to chase them. Your ex-dumper doesn't want to have a conversation, let alone anything more than that, regarding you two getting back together once the breakup has been settled. Once the dust has settled, once your ex-dumper has decided that this is not the way forward for them, they're not going to want to speak about this any further. Now, if you as a dumpee, you might be thinking, well, I want to speak about it further just because they made a decision, and maybe we had a discussion or quite possibly an argument, sadly, during the breakup. I feel there's more that needs to be said. Well, sadly, at this time, if the dumper has ended the relationship, if they feel that everything has been said, if they haven't changed their mind during the breakup process, this is when they're moving on their own path. And you, as a dumpee, need to respect that. Because if you don't, your likelihood of getting your ex back is going to fall rapidly. With every contact that you send out to your dumper, the likelihood of getting them back is going to be less and less. Because ultimately, you're going to be frustrating them. You're going to be annoying them. You're going to be bugging them. And when we consider what we need to try to do to get an ex back, that is not the way to go about it. They're feeling a low level of romantic emotional attraction, don't forget. And we need to raise that attraction level. The only way your ex-dumper is going to consider changing their mind is if they feel a high level of romantic emotional attraction for you. And the way to achieve this is not to annoy them. The way to achieve this is not for your dumper to feel that you're disrespecting them by not listening to them. So whether or not you feel that there is more to be said, if your ex-dumper is saying that they're done and you've had some level of conversation about it, like I said, maybe it was an argument, whatever it may have been, if the dust has settled, you must respect their decision. Because if you don't, and therefore that means you're chasing them, you're going to be annoying them. So if we consider this position point number one, they will be grateful if you stop chasing your ex. The reason for this is because this is what they want. They want you to leave them alone. And therefore, if you leave them alone, they're going to be feeling grateful. But, and this is an important but, if you want to try to get your ex back in the long term, so to speak, this is going to be a very good move indeed. Now, you might say, well, I want them back in the short term. Well, sadly, that is very unlikely. From my research, most dumpers might reach out to their dumpee around the 6-month mark if they're going to. That's the average. It could be sooner, it could be longer, and sometimes it's never. You need to make sure you aren't in that never category. And the best way to become in that never category is to annoy your ex. So you can't annoy them, and therefore you can't chase them. So if we look at it in that respect, yes, they're going to be grateful that you're leaving them alone. Yes, they're going to be grateful that you're not chasing them, but this is going to help you in the long term. Now, I can't guarantee you'll get your ex back, but what I can say is that you're increasing your chance of success. Because if your ex is feeling grateful, if your ex is feeling that you're listening to them, if your ex is feeling that you're respecting them, then slowly but surely their thoughts towards you are likely to improve. The level of romantic emotional attraction they feel towards you is likely to raise slowly but surely day by day. Now, I can't guarantee it's going to hit the necessary high point, but what I can say is it's going to be moving in the necessary direction, which is upwards. Whereas if you chase your ex, they're not going to be feeling grateful. They're going to be feeling frustrated, annoyed, angry. And this level of attraction, which is already low, is going to plummet even further. And that's why it's so important, if you want to try to get your ex back, to understand that yes, they're going to be grateful that you're not chasing them, but in the long term, and this is what we're looking at here, the longer term for you to try to get back together, this is a very good move for you. And that's why point number one about what happens when you stop chasing your ex is that they will be grateful. So now let's get into point number two and the second point of today's podcast. Please like this video if you're watching on YouTube and subscribe to the channel. And point number two is they will wonder about you. So this is where we're looking into the medium term. Like I was saying, the long-term plan is you get your ex back by your ex-dumper regrowing romantic emotional attraction to hit the necessary high point. And when it hits that high point, this is when they are likely to reach out to you. But we need to backtrack just a touch to the moment of where we're in that medium-term category. And this is where your ex-dumper will start to wonder about you. So if you stop chasing your ex, or if you play the perfect breakup game, you could say, and you've never chased your ex in the first place, This is going to, of course, speed up the process and give you that best chance of success sooner rather than later. But even in the sooner category, it's not likely to be tomorrow or next week. But anyway, let's just look at it in respect of if sooner you can move into a no contact phase, the sooner you can be increasing that chance of your ex regrowing attraction. But when we look at this moving into that medium term, they will start to move from feeling grateful to wondering about you. And this is the beauty of a breakup situation for the point of a dumpee. Now you're thinking during the breakup, you didn't have anything going for you, but this is where a bit of human psychology, a bit of human instinct, you could say, is really going to play for you. And that is the fact that there is nothing more attractive than rejection. Now you might think, well, I haven't rejected my ex, they dumped me. Yes, that is true. And that is why, incidentally, you are feeling so much pain and anguish, sadly, because, like I said, there is nothing more attractive than rejection. You have been rejected, and your level of attraction towards your ex has skyrocketed. If you think about it literally and seriously and honestly, you will realise that you actually feel more for your ex right now than you actually probably did within the relationship. There can often be a very fine line between being a dumper or a dumpee. And maybe you look back to your relationship with honest eyes and see that it wasn't that perfect, and actually you could have been the dumper. Maybe in an alternative reality, you end the relationship, not them. Maybe if your relationship had gone on a couple more months, you would have become the dumper, not your ex. But the way it played out, they dumped you. You became a dumpee, and because they have rejected you, you're instantaneously feeling amazingly more attracted to them than perhaps you actually were within the relationship towards the end in particular. So that's why it's so important to understand there is nothing more attractive than rejection, but this is how it can play into your favour. Because your ex dumper ended a relationship and they don't want you to chase them, but subconsciously they're expecting you to. Subconsciously they think you as a dumpee are going to be waiting for them as a safety net if anything doesn't play out the way they hope within their life. So the dumper doesn't want you to chase, but they expect you to chase. And what happens if you don't chase? Well, in their subconscious mind, they feel rejected. And this is where it can come into play, where things can spin around, so the dumpee starts to gain an advantage. And this is how we see it at that moment. The dumper is subconsciously wondering why you aren't chasing them, because they expected you to. They thought you loved them more than anybody. They thought you was always going to push them on that pedestal. And because you haven't, they're going to start wondering about you. And wondering about you is the beginning of hopefully evolving to the point of them missing you. And if they miss you, this is when that level of attraction will move towards the high point. And if it hits that high point, this is when hopefully they'll be reaching out. But during this midpoint, we have to consider, today's podcast is all about this is what happens when you stop chasing your ex. This happens. And when we're talking about point number 2, we're focusing on they will wonder about you. They'll wonder about you because it will just hit them that all of a sudden you're not there. You aren't there and they expected you to be. You aren't there and they imagined you would always be that safety net, and therefore subconsciously they feel that you've rejected them. There is nothing more attractive than rejection. And slowly but surely, that level of romantic emotional attraction in their mind is going to start growing. Maybe it's already grown a little bit already, and now it's going to be growing more and more and more. What are you doing? If you're not texting them, then who are you texting? If you're not knocking on their door, then whose door are you knocking on? They're going to be wondering that subconsciously. Now remember, consciously, they don't want you to do this. And consciously, they'll be very annoyed if you do. So I don't suggest you go knock on that door or send them a text or phone them up, because this is not going to help your cause. This is going to be a situation where they are consciously annoyed and frustrated. It's not going to allow them to grow the necessary attraction. So although it might sound confusing, consciously they don't want you to do this, but subconsciously they're thinking and expecting you will, and if you don't, that level of surprise is going to play in your favour and start to regrow the attraction levels. This is how you can really achieve your goal in the longer term, but when we consider the midterm, this is how we look at it. They're going to start wondering about you, and that could be the beginning of you one day getting your ex back. Now, if you want support and guidance about how to increase the chance of one day getting your ex back, if you want to learn about the hints, tips and advice that I can have for your unique situation, then you may want to consider my audio coaching service, where me and you can speak one-on-one about your unique specific situation. Go to my website www.dateme.tips for more information about how I can become your coach and your teammate via my audio coaching service. So now let's get into point number 3 and the final point of today's podcast about this happens when you stop chasing your ex. And point number 3 is you can heal. And this is probably the most important point of today's podcast, because irrespective of if you get your ex back, irrespective of if you even want your ex back, you need to heal. You need to go through breakup recovery. You need to go through the stages of grief, and you will come out the other side. And you can come out the other side stronger than before, more intelligent than before, more knowledgeable, more fit, more healthy. Every single element of you can be improved if you use this period of no contact to your advantage. Because if you're not chasing your ex, you have one important, valuable asset, and that is time. The time that you were thinking about your ex, the time that you were texting your ex, the time you were traveling to where your ex worked, to wait outside to try and grab a quick word with them, that time can be used to improve you, your knowledge, and therefore your intelligence, your fitness, and therefore your health, your creativity. You can become that version 2.0 of yourself. And you can't heal, and you can't grow, and you can't do any of the positive aspects of this unless you have time. And time is only given to you if you stop chasing your ex. And that's why it's so important that we remember that with or without your ex, you can have a positive future. Because even if you don't get your ex back, if you heal, if you go through breakup recovery, if you use your time wisely, if you care for you and concentrate on you and make sure you're number one, then the future is bright. The future is exciting. And even if you don't get your ex back, you can find somebody even better because you can become a version 2.0 of yourself. And if you want motivational boosts, if you want help and advice, then like I said earlier, my audio coaching could be for you. Because whatever happens with your ex, your life is going to be fantastic. Your future is going to be amazing, and you will achieve all of your goals and beyond what you can imagine right now if you improve, if you grow, and therefore you need to make sure that you use your time wisely and that you heal. If you believe that this podcast has helped you, then please consider buying me a coffee. The link to do so is in the description.